Sadhbh was a beautiful young girl, and she gained the attention of a mighty druid named Frederick. He was the dark druid of the Tuatha, and Frederick wanted Sadhbh as his bride. But she was still a maiden, and she was too young, so she refused his advances. Outraged by her refusal, the druid cast her into the form of a speckled deer, a doe, in which form she remained for more than 3 years. Many men worked for the Dark Druid and helped to care for Sadhbh and keep her in his walls. One of the men took pity on her and told her the truth of the Dark Druid's spell. She would have to escape Frederick's walls, go through the threshold between worlds, and enter the material world, where time ages and the cold bites. She would then have to find the Fianna. In the Fianna, they were known for their love of hunting deer and their skill of killing. And in her deer form, she would have to find their leader and be welcomed into his hearth. The Dark Druid assumed this to be impossible and expected for Sadhbh to be his forever. Sadhbh heeded the advice of her new friend and escaped Frederick's walls. She had to be very careful not to be seen by him or his men. And used her deer form to her advantage. When she entered the material world, she was met with the pain of coldness and hunger for the first time in her life. She knew by the deer and the other animals running away where the hunters were, and so she went towards them. Careful not to be seen. Soon, she was in the lands of the king of the Fianna, Fionn McCool. Fionn McCool was out hunting on his lands with his men and 2 great hounds, Bran and Sciolán. Bran and Sciolán would lead Fionn all around Ireland, searching for and chasing down their prey. On this day, the dogs tracked down Sadhbh. When Bran and Sciolán came across the doe, Fionn expected his hounds to attack it, but they didn't. For they also had been bound to an animal form and recognised that Sadhbh was also a human bound. So, instead they approached her and protected her from their master. When Fionn saw this, he didn't try to correct his hounds. Instead, he decided to trust them. He knew there was something special about this doe, so he softly spoke to her, asking her if she would like him to take her back to his home for protection. To Fionn's surprise, The deer got up and followed him all the way back to the ring fort. The dogs escorting them all along the way. Once in his home, Fionn saw how happy and comfortable his dogs were, and welcomed the young deer into his heart. Sadhbh shed her deerskin and stood up tall and once again assumed her human form as a beautiful young woman. But she was more than just a beautiful young woman. Standing in front of the leader of all Irishmen was a naked magical woman of the legendary Fae, whose beauty and sweetness went unmatched in the material world. Fionn McCool, growing up with these stories, fell immediately in love with her. For months, Fionn and Sadhbh stayed inside his fort. Fionn gave up hunting, sport and all other pleasures. Sadhbh was soon a child. But peace was not to last. The Kerry coastline was getting raided by Vikings, and Fionn McCool and the Fianna had to defend Ireland from the invaders. Fionn was saddened to leave Sadhbh, knowing she carried his child, and he assured her that he would hurry back home as soon as the fighting was done. Sadhbh anxiously waited for Fionn. Every day the expectant mother walked along the walls of the stone fort watching for Fionn to return from battle. On the fourth night, after Fionn had left for the coast, Sadhbh was on top of the walls surrounding the fort when she saw the figure of Fionn approaching under the full moon. Sadhbh was elated to see her beloved returning to her, and heavy with child now, she left the fort to greet Fionn McCool and take him into her arms. But it was not Fionn. It was the dark druid, Frederick, cloaked in magic, appearing to all as Fionn McCool, pulling a hazel wand from beneath his cloak as Sadhbh approached. Frederick touched her with his wand, and Sadhbh turned back into a doe. The sorcerer put a rope around Sadhbh's neck and led her off into the night. After 7 days of battle with the Vikings, Fionn McCool returned home, only to learn that his beloved Sadhbh was missing. Fionn searched the grounds of the fort and the surrounding settlement, but all he found was her night shift on the ground outside the stone walls of the fort. Fionn knew that Sadhbh's disappearance must have been the work of the Tuathail's dark magic, and set off immediately with Bran and Sciolán and all his Fianna hunters, who were now tired from battle, to find his beloved mate. For 7 years, Fionn McCool roamed Ireland in search of his beloved, but every day ended in a fruitless search. Fionn's heart became heavier and colder with grief as each year passed by, but Fionn refused to give up looking for Sadhbh. Then, after 7 years, Fionn and his Fianna hunters came across a child in the nearby mountains. The boy did not know how to speak, but Fionn's hounds, Bran and Sciolán, approached the young boy and lay down at his feet. Upon closer inspection, Fionn saw that the boy had the same eyes as Sadhbh and the same hair as himself. So he decided to take the boy back home and teach him how to speak. As the months passed by, the wild boy learned how to speak, and he told Fionn about his mother, a kind deer that would nuzzle him. And every now and then a man would come and talk nicely to the deer and joke and laugh, but then he would grow angry. And the angry man would strike at the deer, until one day he got so angry he dragged her out and they were gone. And the place they were in disappeared and the boy was left, until Fionn found him. This confirmed what Fionn McCool knew in his heart of hearts, that this boy was his own son. He named him Uisín, meaning little deer. Fionn McCool never stopped searching for Sadhbh, but Sadhbh was never found. Legend has it that she still to this very day wanders the forests of Ireland in the form that the dark druid of the Two-a-Day commanded, cursed for all time. That is, until the year 2000, when there was a little girl who lived in the Wicklow Mountains. She felt a light tapping on her foot and woke up one morning to see her dad smiling at her. "There's deer in the garden," he said, and she shot up like a light. He brought her out to the kitchen, and there, outside the window, was a herd of 6 deer. "Careful not to scare them," he said, and she slowly inched towards the window. The fluidity of their movements as they lightly trod around the garden was like magic. Step after careful step they calmly grazed, raising their heads and flicking their ears, looking around and sniffing the air. Soon all she saw were big hazel eyes, intensely staring at her. It wasn't an evil stare like the one of disdain from the grown-ups who have been contradicted or questioned, but one made by an animal, more sort of knowing. This deer was her friend. The speckled doe took a small step forward, and then, as if suddenly hearing a commander's whistle, the whole herd ran away. And so began their routine. Every now and then, the deer would come, and the little girl would enjoy a staring contest with the speckled doe and the big hazel eyes, and each time the doe got a step closer. As time went on, the speckled doe came to the back door and let the little girl pet her. Her father grew concerned. He started discouraging the interactions with the wild animal and would tell her not to let the deer get too used to humans. "It's safer for them to be afraid of us," he would say. But the little girl didn't understand this, for she didn't want to hurt any animals, let alone the speckled doe. So as soon as she was alone in the house, she opened the back door to let in her friend. "This is the kitchen," she said, gesturing around. "Dad will be mad if he sees you, so we have to be fast." The doe looked around curiously and slowly with her big staring eyes. She carefully stepped over to the hearth. The fire wasn't on, but it was still warm enough. Sniffing at the rug on the floor, she circled and laid down. And as she did so, the weight of 1,000 years melted off her. The little girl looked at her, and she didn't have the heart to say, "You're going to have to move." So instead she went over and she sat down beside her on the rug. She petted her friend's head and said softly, "Okay, you can stay." And just like that, the doe transformed. In her place was a young speckled woman, her hazel eyes staring with a different intensity. She was happy. She was herself. As the little girl looked into her eyes, the woman aged. Like a flower, she grew and bloomed and wilted and got small and withered, until there was nothing left but a small pile of ash. Heartbroken, the little girl watched as her friend wafted gently up the chimney. But the little girl remembered her friend forever. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. My name is Saoirse, and that was the story of Sadhbh.